Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Paramount Liquor Agave Spirits Masterclass. We're sitting here at the elegant and totally empty 18th Amendment bar here in Geelong. Actually, the whole street and the whole city's empty. Like probably most of you, we are in lockdown. We have something like 380 people that are online today from all over Australia watching. My name is Gorge Camorra. I'm the spirit specialist for Paramount Liquor. This is Damien Cost-Beckwith. Giving me a hand. What's your role, Damien?
I'm George's group bars manager, running all of the 18th Amendment Manhattan venues.
Awesome. And you're probably wondering why we're here. I guess the main reason that I think it's great to do masterclasses is in times that we're in at the moment with these COVID lockdowns that never really get us to get back to full capacity. Now's the time where we want to be upselling and suggesting great spirits to our guests. The days of cheap tequilas with funny little Mexican hats and that are far behind us. And we have got a lovely lineup of not only agave spirits, but also lovely brand ambassadors. And we would love for you to give us any questions. Okay, so give us the questions as you're going along. However, we will wait towards the end of the session today to answer all of those. If we can't get through to all of them, we will definitely send you a reply via email. We've got a couple giveaways to do, haven't we?
We do indeed, yeah.
So we have 5 packs that are going to be given away today where you get the chance to win a bottle of one of these beautiful spirits, along with a Cappy mixer pack as well. The key to it is, though, you have to stay on for the whole session and be around at the end of it. Why would you want to leave anyway? I would definitely be sitting back and enjoying this for the rest of the afternoon.
Most definitely. And if you are one of the lucky 5 winners, make sure that you contact Paramount after that to organise your prize pack.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, probably by Instagram would probably be the easier way, I would say. Like Instagram, Paramount Liquor, just got the plug in there, and send us a message if you're the winner. And we've got a few deals that we'll talk about later on as well. So the first thing that we're going to do, guys, is do a poll. And the poll is really just to know about your knowledge about tequila and agave spirits. So if you could just hit that poll or answer the poll for us, and we'll just sit back and wait for you to answer.
Beautiful. So the first poll is, what is your level of tequila and mezcal knowledge? What is your level of tequila knowledge, George?
Well, I thought it was pretty good until I'm sitting in front of all these brand ambassadors because they know way more than I do. So I actually get a bit intimidated by it. But when I'm doing sessions myself, I act like I know everything.
Alrighty, got it. All the votes coming in now.
Okay, what are the results, Damien?
Alrighty, so we have a small percentage showing no knowledge. We have the majority of today's viewers showing 44% of the viewers are at the beginner stage, 32% are mediocre, 14% are good, and 4% are excellent.
Awesome. I feel a bit of relief now. So how about you guys, the brand ambassadors? Like, whoo, okay. Tequila, Damien. I mentioned before, it has had a bit of a bad name. I can remember being at a Patron event one day and you got a little bit muzzled on it. I've done the same thing. I think it gets a lot of blame where we tend to drink pretty much everything all night, have that shot of really badly made tequila that ends our night really quickly. But it's not really like that anymore, is it?
No, not at all. So these days we're finding more customers are asking for, especially asking the bartenders, what do you drink? What do you suggest? Which gives us as bartenders a lot more weight in the decision, and especially with what we stock on our back bars, but also what we are able to promote. Where we're finding whether it's all the way Blanco flavored mezcal, they're just wanting that better premium pour.
Yeah, definitely. And for those of you guys watching, you know, if you really want to be serious working in this industry, you need to get behind the scenes and learn as well, because that's what we do. Even I've been in the industry for a long time now and I'm still constantly learning. So fantastic that you've turned up to this session, although it's not in real life. So,
Most definitely.
so today I'm going to introduce the panelists. Do you have anything to say?
No, I was just going to say, who do we have joining us this afternoon?
All right, we've got the royalty of brand ambassadors when it comes to agave spirits. We have Jason Pitt from Tequila Tromba, Joey Chisholm from Patron, Hayley Dixon from 1800, and Alice Newport. So, another poll.
We do indeed. So the poll is looking at, and I just threw away my page. What is the most popular type of tequila or mezcal in your venue? Looking at different age statements, or is it flavored? Feel free to answer that poll that's on your screen now.
Please answer properly. I've just told you what brands are talking to you today. Do you have a special tequila that you prefer? I'm too scared to say.
So in terms of the style, so we're looking at the age statement. When I'm on shift, I do love me a good Blanco Tequila, but at home as a bit of a nightcap, I do enjoy a añejo. Something a little bit sort of older, a bit more of that sort of rounded flavors.
Yeah, I'm the same. I enjoy an añejo. However, I feel that if you really want to see what tequila's made properly, it will be in the Blanco, because you can hide something when it's been in a barrel.
Definitely.
So the first person that I'm going to introduce, panelist, is Mr. Jason Pitt from Tequila Tromba. How are you, mate?
Very well, George. Very well. Thanks for inviting me along. Excited to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. So whereabouts are you, mate? Are you in Melbourne or Sydney? Or
I am based in Melbourne, the sunny, mean streets of Bayside Melbourne. So enjoying 2 kids at home, trying to do some work, but I booted them out of the house to go for a run so I can talk to everyone here for the next however long. So
that's fantastic. So for all of our viewers, if you want to grab your first sample, which is the Tequila Tromba Blanco, while you start pouring yourself that. Now, guys, you have 5 straight shots of agave spirits there. Go easy at the start, because you want to be around at the end to try to win some of these packs. Don't go shooting everything too quickly. And for me, it's nice sometimes to actually put them up against each other just to sort of tell the difference in them. While I pour myself one, Jason, tell us a little bit about
just quickly.
Tromba.
While George is pouring his tasting, and mine while we're at it. Pretty good timing. We're talking to Jason first up, because 46% of viewers say that Blanco Tequila is the main subtype of tequila on their back bar, followed with 28% showing reposado, 14% añejo, 2% with flavored, and 5% with mezcal.
5% mezcal. I think that will be changing soon, because mezcal's definitely a category that's growing. So, Jason, fire away, mate. Tell us a little bit about number 1, Tequila Tromba, and also what is a Blanco Tequila?
So Tequila Tromba, we're a wonderful little company, independent company, where we've been around for about 11 years now. Our journey started about 15 years ago back in Guadalajara, when Nick and Jim, 2 Aussie guys, met our other partner, Eric Brass, in Guadalajara studying. And they fell in love with the culture, the cantina culture, and actually fell in love with tequila. And fortuitously enough, they met a guy named Rodrigo Sedano, who was their same age. So these boys are all in their early 30s now. But and then fortunately enough, Rodrigo's dad was Marco Sedano, who was the first master distiller of Don Julio back in about 84, 85, and actually really the pioneer of 100% agave spirits, with 100% agave tequila, that is. So he was the first master distiller back for Don Julio. So we're fortunate enough to have him. We've been in the bottle now for about 11 years. We launched in Melbourne and Toronto about 11 years ago, and now sort of forging our way through the US. So it's exciting times. It's hard at the moment with tequila, and obviously with COVID last few years, that we've built our brand on premise, with the retail aspect still a lot to go. But we're really excited at where we are and the brand advocacy that we have, and it's exciting. It's good times.
That's fantastic. Now, you mentioned before about 100% blue leather agave or tequila. What do you mean by that?
So tequila, for I think you said 44% of the people are quite novices. So tequila is based from an agave plant. So tequila, a little bit like different from mezcal, can only use 1 species of agave, which the agave is a very large plant that we want the middle, we want the piña, the heart of the agave plant, and that's what's harvested. and then that's what's cooked, milled, and distilled. So the agave plant itself takes about 7 to 8 years to grow to full maturity. And if you want it to go to full maturity, it gets to around sort of 40 kilos. So the plant is quite hard. And now the humidores, or the harvesters, use this wonderful tool on a long shovel handle and cut around the leaves or the penkers of the agave plant to get to the heart. And this is where the first expression of influencing taste is there. The humidores, that's quite a fine art to get to a right ball before it gets taken back to the distillery to be cooked and go through the process there.
That's awesome. So what about a mixto? I've heard these tequilas that back in, I'm showing my age now, the late 80s that I was shooting with these little Mexican hats and worms in the bottles and everything like that. What's a mixto?
So a mixto tequila, the way it sort of sits with the laws at the moment, it's 51%, 100% agave tequila, and then 49% additives. So whether it's corn sugar. The easiest way I like to describe it, let's say you've got a bottle of about that much tequila in it, fill it full of the worst possible vodka you've ever had in your life. That's what you've got mixto tequila. But mixto tequila came out of necessity a long time ago when there was a shortage, and also when economics played a very big part. And that's why I said when Marco was the first real master distiller of 100% agave tequila, that he just saw this wonderful plant that they were cultivating and harvesting over 8 years, and all the process all done by hand was just being wasted by messing up half of it by putting neutral sugar or cornstarch or whatever they want on the top to pad it out. It's out of necessity. It's a very cheap and a very economical way to make tequila, but in my mind, it just doesn't taste good. Doesn't taste good at all.
I totally agree. So what is the Blanco tequila? So I've seen silver, I've seen Blanco, which in Spanish means white or clear.
Yeah. So tequila has its appellation laws. So much like champagne, it has to come from particular regions in Mexico. The main region is Jalisco, and so Jalisco is where about 97, 98% of all the distilleries are, and this is where we are. And we're in that sort of in the state of Jalisco, sort of broken up into two regions: the highlands and also the lowlands or the volcanic valley. So the highlands, where our distillery is and where we get our agave from, is about 6,000 feet above sea level. And then the lowlands, it's still quite high. The lowlands is still about 2,000 feet above sea level. So there's still a bit of height there. And this is where this wonderful word terroir comes in, that the higher you are, so in the highlands, you're looking at brands like ourselves, Don Julio, Centelegres. In the lowlands, Fortaleza, Herradura, Arete. So there's no right or wrong or better or worse with the tequilas. They just have different expressions of tastes. So where we are in the highlands, our Blanco Tequila is the first expression of the appellation law. So we've got Blanco, Reposado, and Añejo. So with Blanco is an unaged tequila, but you can rest it if you want for about up to 2 months. And then I'll let the other ambassadors talk about those other expressions with Reposado, 2 months to a year, and then Añejo, 1 to 3 years. But Joey and Hayley will go into more detail with that one. So Blanco Tequila, as part of the appellation laws as well, once you've gone past the cooking and the milling and the distillation, when you get to distillation, it needs to be distilled twice to be called tequila. The first distillation is called ordinario, which tends to be about 25, 27% alcohol. And the second distillation comes off in our distillery at about 55%. And this is what you normally have. And then it's sort of filtered down or essentially watered down to whatever level of ABV that you want in your particular market. In Australia, we're at 37% because Marco, in all his wisdom, always, he feels tequila should be drunk between 35 and 38%. So in Australia, we're at 37%. But then in the US, we sit at 40% because the laws of spirits in the US, you need to be 40% to be classified as a spirit. So in Australia, we're at 37%. So an unaged tequila, beautiful light vegetal notes, which is a really true reflection of the Highland tequila. You really want that very light vegetal, all the notes sort of coming through.
Yeah, it tastes amazing and smells amazing. Do you have any questions, Damien?
I was just going to say, I think for the guests out there, I think for me, I love to try, no matter what brand it is, I always like to try their Blanco tequila because it's the raw tequila from that distillery. So you really get a bit of a sense of place, a sense of profile for that that tequila.
Yeah, I'm the same as you, Damo. Like I am I'm not a whiskey drinker. And so for me, this is a pure expression. This is what Marco always resonated with me when I first started with the brand 6 years ago, that when you've got 8 years of conditioning of the agave, it's hand harvested, everything is done by hand and everything sets true, that this is a pure expression. This is what you want. And then no offense to the aged tequilas, but that's not my personal preference, that even with our reposado and Yoho, we don't go to the full timing because Marco always wants agave to be forward. If you want to age too long, so with extra Añejo, anything after 3 years, go drink cognac, go drink fucking brandy, because you may as well use a neutral grain. Where here, you've got the taste of the highlands and you've got the real art of the humidor that use these badass tools in 40-degree weather in the middle of the fucking desert. You know, it's hard work. I think on my trips, I've had a crack at it a couple of times. Mine turned out like bad Rubik's Cubes. They were just terrible. It's really hard work. It's not an easy job at all. So.
And I totally agree with you. I think back when I started my tequila journey a few years ago, I went automatically to an añejo, and I think that was more because I really didn't know how to drink straight spirits, and I found that it was a little bit easier. And then as my palate adapted and kept getting better, I can definitely pick up.
I think that is also as well when Australia came out of necessity as well, that the tequilas, you know, look, we've been in the market, like I said, you know, 11 years. Really before that was only mixto tequilas or compromised brands that were selling. So we were drinking a lot of reposado tequilas, because if you've got a poor spirit, what better way than trying to round the edges out or try and make it taste a little bit better, stick it in a barrel for a while, and that's what will happen. So, you know, and now with the availability of wonderful companies, the work that Paramount Liquor does to have quite a wide range of, you know, we thank them, they stock our products, that there's a little plug there, is that all right, for Paramount Liquor? That, you know, the accessibility, and there's wonderful other agave companies that are importing tequilas, and, you know, that's over the time, it's only going to get more and more and more, because, you know, the reason people always ask is, you know, Tromba, how do you survive? Well, we're selling boxes, so people want a better product, or they want a different expression. So it's exciting times. It's exciting times that for Australia, look, as I just found out this morning, I was reading a bit of a nerdy agave statistics that, where is it? I've got it right here. That 5 countries equate for 91% of all exported tequila, and Australia just hit that top 5. So where Australia, apart from being a big bunch of pissheads, they're starting to enjoy, like you said in the beginning, drink better quality spirits and less of the volume stuff. So kudos to everyone for drinking better spirits.
Yeah, we're definitely noticing that too. I think when I opened up one of my first bars, I think we had like 2 or 3 tequilas. What have we got? Here at Geelong.
Tough questions. They'd be over 30.
Over 30 tequilas.
40, yeah.
And they're not just sitting there collecting dust either. People are drinking them. So for those of the beginner guests of ours, you know, viewing today, if they can't drink it straight and their palate's not ready, what are other ways that you would suggest?
Well, for me, when I do a lot of the consumer tastings, that reposado is something that generally people go towards first, because people have had whiskey. So that muscle memory of having something that's been sitting in or resting in wood, is sort of familiar to them, where, you know, Blanco Tequila is quite unfamiliar. That for us, you know, look, margaritas, you look at, since COVID, you know, George and Damo, you can say how many margaritas you've sold since November, especially in Melbourne. But for me, last year, I really thought that, you know, with the country being down, that that people are going to go to the lowest common denominator with their tequilas. But people have come out and really smashed margaritas. You know, for venues like us around the country, they're doing 1 or 2 bottles a week and now doing 2-3 cases. I think so. The margarita and the accessibility of where it is and the price point. You know, now, especially in the 100% agave category and in the craft space, we've really got to look towards, you know, we can't be compared to some of the cheaper brands anymore. It really is apples and oranges. But the consumers drive that. They want to know, you look what happened in the gin category. You know, who would have thought 10 years ago that people would be moving $120 bottles of gin would be flying off the shelf at Dan Murphy's? It's absolutely ludicrous. So if flavored vodka can do that, tequila and mezcal can do that as well. Sorry, I just called gin flavoured vodka. Sorry to all the gin friends out there.
Look, I totally agree with you. Unfortunately, I had a small stint as a brand ambassador for a French gin about 7-8 years ago, and $75 for a bottle of gin, that was too expensive. No one wanted to spend it. It's fantastic.
Sorry, to answer your question anyway, what would you go for? Look, a wonderful margarita, or a drink that we love to hero is the Paloma. So, you know, a good whack of tequila and grapefruit soda. So whether it's, I think our sponsors today are Cappy. So let's go with the Cappy grapefruit. And just a bit of lime with a nice big salt rim. It's a wonderful drink. It's a wonderful drink. They're all through the cantinas of Mexico as well. And it's a big drink for Tromba as well with the Paloma. We have our initiative at the end of the year, International Paloma Appreciation Week, which at the end of September, just because we want to align ourselves with a drink that we love. And who, to be honest, who doesn't love a pink drink?
Absolutely, very true.
Do you drink Palomas?
I haven't for a while, but I do love the old Paloma.
I really
get back on it.
Yeah, we'll have to.
That Cappy soda, and I'm not just saying that because they're the like the sponsor today, but that bitterness and the bubbles. I used to make it with just like a flat pink juice many years ago, but
yeah.
Once again, using better ingredients in your cocktails and your drink, for sure.
Most definitely.
Do you have any more questions for Pity before
I was going to ask what to mix it with, but that's already been covered. What's your favorite cocktail with the Tromba Blanco?
The Paloma for me. I'm a massive Paloma fan. But then for me at the moment, as much as I just gave a bit of the gin category a bit of a whack, that I love stealing. I love Blanco Tequila for its versatility as well. Because being a clear spirit, stealing gin and vodka drinks is great. Espresso martinis. For me, Negronis, I love throwing out gin and putting tequila into my Negronis. Our Canadians call them trombonis, which I feel that feels like a bad sex move for me. So the Rosita resonates well with me. So take out the gin, put tequila in. But the versatility, I love, and for the bartenders out there, that being a clear spirit, you stick them in pretty much all your drinks, whether it's vodka, gin based. For me, espresso martinis are great. I think probably even preferably with mezcal, but Alice can talk about that later on. But yeah, but for me, there's no right or wrong whether the Highlands, but I love a Paloma, love a Tommy's, and I love a Rosita.
I think that's a bit of a takeaway for those bartenders at home. Any gin drinks, take out the gin, chuck in tequila, and see how it goes. Might need a little bit of a tweak here and there, but I think you're going to be on the money most of the times.
Absolutely, and tequila and tonic is outstanding.
Oh yes, yep, yeah. It's something that we've tried to push for a while. The tequila and soda, or the diet Paloma, as someone mentioned it, someone cashed it the other day. But yeah, drinking tequila or mezcal with tonic or soda, it's the answer. It's good for 45-year-olds putting on a little bit of weight when you go out. That you're not drinking too many of these high citrus drinks. That's for sure. How can you go wrong with a tequila and soda?
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Pity. Once again, we are massive fans of Tromba. It's probably about the closest we're going to get to an Australian tequila, I guess. So make sure that you give it a try for those of you that haven't. Thank you so much. And we're going to now head over to Joey Chisholm from Patron. How you going there, mate?
Hello, team. How you doing? Hello, gents. Hello, everybody on the line. Yeah, my name's Joey Chisholm. I'm the National Patron brand ambassador for Bacardi Martini Australia. So thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. As we're pouring our Patron
Which you might get that
reposado, give it a bit of a spiel there. Don't forget, guys, you can win a bottle of this with a Cappy pack. Stay tuned towards the end. So, Joey, tell us a little bit about Patron and also reposado. What does that mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So Patron started in 1989 in the Jalisco region of Mexico. As Jason said, there are the 5 regions you can grow blue or agave, which you can then produce tequila with. And we started out with a really clear and key vision to be the world's first handcrafted ultra premium tequila. We produce quite a lot of tequila. We are probably the bigger brand in this panel, but we also do everything by hand. And that's something that is really true to our founding father and our master distiller, Francisco Agaves, rest his soul. He wanted to create a really delicious spirit using traditional methods and also modern methods at the same time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Like, I guess the way that I sort of learnt about tequila, predominantly Patron, was all the rappers were singing about it. We need a few of these rappers to get on board with, say, for example, Tromba as well. But do you guys pay them? What's the go? They just like it and sing about it?
So the early days, Patron was an independent company, and then Bacardi only purchased it in 2016. So back in the day, it was very heavily focused in America for that like luxury premium product. And as the brand has evolved now, with be owned by now Bacardi, who's the largest family-owned spirits company, we sort of maintain that luxury element with a little less of that sort of rapper XO world and more of delicious cocktails and more delicious age statements that we're going to talk through in a minute.
And I'm glad you've done that, because I can remember a few years ago, someone asked for a tequila and I poured them one, and they were complaining that it wasn't dark because they thought that all tequila was XO Cafe. So
yeah. Still, I mean, it's a amazing product, but our focus point is our age statements for the future.
That's fantastic. And so tell me a little bit about how you cook the agaves at Patron.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually produce two styles of tequila that we then marry together to create our silver, our base for everything we do at Patron. So we do a traditional method and we do a modernized version. In both methods, we start, as Jason said, you start with the heart, the piña, 35, 40 kilos each. And we actually roast these in clay brick ovens for over 3 days. That acts as think of it like a barbecue, brisket, low and slow. We're trying to sort of transform the chemical compound inulin into a fermentable sugar we can then use to ferment and distill. We do that in low and slow, and we steam bake them in clay brick ovens.
Awesome. And I saw a photo of, I don't know, it was like a donkey or some machine with a big bloody wheel or something. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in the day, we would use a Tahona wheel to mill or to crush your piña. And a Tahona wheel, for those you don't know, is a large volcanic rock shaped into a wheel, and then a donkey would then pull that around a pit to act as like a big mortar and pestle to sort of pulverize and juice the piña itself. Now, that process does take a while. So traditional methods that use a Tahona wheel do take a longer time to produce tequila. But it gives a really beautiful sweetness because you're using both the skin and the fiber to create that beautiful sweetness and flavor throughout the profile. As I said before, we produce two styles. We produce a Tahona wheel process and a modernized version using a roller mill. And we separate those straight from the oven to produce two styles of tequila. We blend them back in after distillation to create our house, our silver, our Blanco Tequila.
Fantastic. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, so today we're trying your reposado tequila. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about the aging process with that? Any specific barrels that it goes in?
Yeah, absolutely. So we obviously age a reposado, as Jason said. Reposado as a category means rested, and it's aged from 2 months to 12. For us at Patron, just like Jason was saying before, we really want to make sure that the hero flavor is the agave coming through. As you said, 8 years for it to grow. It's all this effort into making this delicious plant for us to use. There's no point in wasting that with extra aging, as Jason said. So for us at Patron, it's anywhere between 3 and 5 months based on time of year and humidity and all the factors that come into aging. And we actually age our tequila in 5 barrels. We have a French white oak, a French limousine oak, a Hungarian white oak, American bourbon barrels, and we also have a hybrid barrel, which we use limousine and bourbon together in a hybrid barrel. And we age that for 3 to 5 months. Strain that off, get that in a bottle, and get liquid on lips. That's the idea.
Fabulous.
Awesome. And how's reposado sales going? Are the punters drinking it? Are you finding that, what's the most popular apart from the cafe, obviously? Yeah, so as I said before, we're pushing on for our age statement. So you'll see a lot of marketing, I suppose, around Repo and Añejo for us. Repo is our signature serve, our key serve for most of our cocktails that we push at Bacardi Martini Australia. And today I'm going to show you one quick one after this, just a quick Paloma session, just as Jay said before, using Cappy Grapefruit. That's our sort of a lead serve that we're going to serve with the Reposado. In terms of sales, it is up there. For us, silver is our lead in our number one producer or number one sales driver, but Repo is a close second. A lot of consumers out there are identifying that the flavors are very similar, and with the addition of oak and the addition of aging, different sorts of flavors come through. Elements of like caramelization comes through from the oak,
You get a lot more sweetness from the raw agave. Then you get that really beautiful white pepper and citrus still comes through from that initial agave silver base.
That's fantastic. Oh, what do you think, Damo?
It's absolutely delicious. One of my it is one of my go-to sipping tequilas. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan too. So, signature serves. You mentioned the Paloma. Are there any other ways that you would suggest that we drink the reposado or Patron with?
Yeah, one of my favorites. I'm a bit of a sucker for watermelon, and I love a watermelon margarita. But reposado base, it just makes it so much more delicious. I get the best job, right? I got this really beautiful product in front of me, and I absolutely love reposado as a category because, as I said before, it's the best of both worlds. You get that really initial hit of that delicious agave, which is our base everything, and the added extra time in oak really brings the sweetness through, and I'm a bit of a sweet tooth, so I love that connection of both sweet and that initial hit from citrus. Watermelon margarita, Rosita, as Jason was saying before, makes a banging like Paloma, as we're going to show in a second. But really, as Jason was saying before, and I think this should be the key message from taking home from this, is tequila is very versatile. You can use it in anything. You can use it in most cocktails, whether it be an old-fashioned using añejo, whether you're going to do like a gin sour or tequila sour, simple that, change it up and get creative with this beautiful spirit.
Yeah, it's really exciting. As far as the bottle goes, it's a pretty cool looking bottle there. I heard that not all bottles are the same, and there's something like 30 hands that touch a bottle of Patron by the time that it gets, to us. Is that legit or what?
Yeah, it's 60 hands in the production of one bottle of Patron, and that goes back to the farm. So we partner with 8 farming families that grow and harvest our piñas for us to work, and we hand load them into the ovens. We then hand load them into our roller mill or our Tahona wheel. We hand turn them in the Tahona wheel process as the wheel smashes it and cold pulverize it. The only machine we have in the distillery is the machine that pumps the liquid from the fermenter to the still, and then we have hand-labeled bottles, and the bottles are handmade themselves. That was a really corny line, which I hate saying, but there's 60 hands making a bottle of Patron. The last 2 hands are my hands to you. It's a bit corny, but it's kind of true. It is.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So we're tasting it here at the moment. Obviously, neat. What are we tasting here? What should we the taste?
So you've got obviously the first initial hit with that beautiful red grapefruit flavor, that beautiful citrus note that comes from the agave itself. We want to highlight that, as we said before, it takes a long time to grow. And you get that really beautiful sweet caramelization comes through from that roasted piña and that Tahona wheel process. What you should taste on the palate should be a lot more of that white pepper, a little bit more sweetness comes through, and a really beautiful, vibrant color of that ruby red grapefruit should be seen in your mind.
Yeah, that's really cool. And like to just age for a few months, what's the equivalent? Let's say, for example, a few months. I know if we were to rest something in Scotland, like a whiskey, it would probably not even taint the color of the spirit. Is there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So obviously the climate goes into a lot in how we age things. Scotland, it gets quite cold. The climate differentiation from winter and summer is very small. For those who've lived in Scotland, you freeze your nuts off. But in Mexico, as Jason was saying, it's 40-degree heat. So just like in the bourbon world, the higher the temperature, the changes, the fluctuation of your heat will change the interaction of liquid into oak. So 3 to 5 months is enough time for us to get that flavor we want without overpowering the agave base. And as a comparison, I suppose you're looking at kind of like maybe like an 8-year-old whiskey or a 10-year-old whiskey, depending if they're aged in like a second refill bourbon barrel or something like that. That really light sort of that light infrastructure of that oak really comes through.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? So fabulous. I'm a massive fan, I must say. Do you have any other questions? We seem to be rushing through. I reckon Joe should make a drink for us after you have a chat.
Yeah, I was just thinking, just again for the bartenders and guys at home. I think one of our team actually entered the wonderful Patron comp recently, and it was a cocktail made using Patron Reposado. She got a lot of this sort of honeysuckle flavors coming through. So she actually took the original cocktail being a bee's knees, so a gin-based cocktail, lemon and honey, removed that gin, added some Patron Reposado and spiced it up a little bit, and it was absolutely delicious.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I mean, for us down in Geelong, we're a little bit behind the major cities. We used to actually have to hide tequila in some of the cocktails on the list because people were just too scared to order it. And it's afterwards that you'd say, oh, you know, it's got tequila in it. And they go, oh, what? So I feel for the tequila industry in the fact that it's a little bit harder to get people into it because of that bad name. But I mean, once you get your guests to try it, they love it. They really do. It's just getting liquid to lips, isn't it?
Definitely.
So yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, I think cocktails are a great way to transition people into drinking tequila. As we were saying before, it's a versatile product. You know, you can use it with honey. You can take out a gin, take out a vodka. You can take out a whiskey, make an old fashioned. It's quite a versatile product because of the regionality and the different flavors and the infusion of different oak elements change the flavor across different brands. Even the production method. Some people do just a honey mill process. Some people just do roll mill process. That changes the different flavors. So getting people to try tequila, get them on a really delicious cocktail, something like a Paloma or something like a watermelon margarita that they're familiar flavors they understand. And then you can introduce them out of that into something that's like, try it neat, try it, taste it as for what it is. You know what I mean? That's the idea.
And look, I really love that. There are a lot of bartenders out there, and a lot of them are the new bartenders that frown upon adding fruits and stuff like that, like a watermelon margarita, but go for it.
Absolutely.
You know, I can remember a certain brand ambassador many years ago doing a Fanta Negroni. Bloody hell, it tasted good though. So you're going to make a drink for us.
Yeah, I thought we'd make a really simple grapefruit soda, Paloma, using the Patron reposado. Just something you guys can make at home or in your bars to get people into drinking this beautiful product we have in front of us. So really simple, guys. It really is 2 ingredients. You can't really go wrong unless you use a mixto, I should say. If you're going to always use 100% Agave for everything that you use in life, whether you bless your child or you have a shot, it should be 100% Agave. So I'm going to make a really simple drink, guys. You can follow at home. If you've got Cappy in front of you, or if you're lucky enough to win one of the Cappy packs later on, you can make this for your friends. This is a great drink for a good group serve too. If you're going to have a big long lunch with your mates and you want to put a few jugs of, Patron Repo or Palomas in front of them, this is the perfect serve to drink in a beautiful summer's afternoon. Could be summer, could be winter. There's no problem drinking delicious Palomas. So starting off, we're going to go 45 mils of Patron Reposado or your favorite Reposado tequila. Just like that. And I'm going to do a quick little splash of my Cappy Grapefruit Soda, thanks to our partners and sponsors of Cappy Grapefruit. Just like that. We'll top it up with ice. Give a beautiful wedge of grapefruit for the garnish. And there we have it, guys. A really delicious, really simple Patron Paloma made with Cappy Grapefruit. Cheers, guys.
Beautiful. Ours must still be on the way from Sydney.
Yeah, we're waiting for it.
Send yours in the post.
Yeah, Joey, send one to my house as well, please. I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Can do.
And there's something great that I love about a built cocktail that you can make in a few seconds when you're 4 deep at the bar.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, that's also key. Yeah. Who wants a Paloma? Anyone? Let's go.
Ship it in, Joey. Ship it in.
Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to sort of finish up on regarding to Patron that you'd like us to?
No, I guess the biggest message for this whole panel's whole session today, guys, is drink 100% Agave, drink quality spirits, and make sure it's tequila. The world of tequila is booming. It's time to jump on board and be part of that pioneering movement. We love it.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
I totally agree there. So thanks a lot, mate.
Thanks, Joe.
All right. Next up, we're going to head over back to Melbourne, I think. Hayley Dixon from Proximo, 1800 Cuervo. What else is she from? She's a bit of a dictionary on tequila. She's done a few sessions here at 18th Amendment Bar. So welcome, Hayley.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
It's a pleasure. Well, you've got a fair bit of a good back bar behind you too.
Yeah, I do. As you mentioned, there's quite a few brands, so got to make sure I've got at least one of each.
Oh, that's awesome. So while I pour myself an 1800 Añejo, and for Damien, tell us a little bit about the brand, the production, anything that you want to talk about.
Righty guys, so for anybody who doesn't know the brand 1800, it's obviously owned under the Jose Cuervo name. I know Joey just previously mentioned he thought he was the biggest brand here, but no, that is us. So Jose Cuervo is the #1 sold tequila around the world. And on top of that, we're also the very first brand ever producing. So our history goes back quite a long way, all the way to 1758. So we've been producing now for just over 225 years. And the brand 1800, we actually brought into our portfolio a little bit down the track in 1975. So the brand now is sitting at just over 45 years in constant production. And we do produce it out of our La Reheña distillery. So the same distillery that we are using for Jose Cuervo. Our 1800, our range from 1800, we're seeing incredible growth around the world, pretty much across all of the SKUs. And because of that, you may actually, this is possibly a brand secret, it's not, but you may see our production move pretty soon to a new location. But for the moment, we are producing out of our Jose Cuervo distillery. 1800 as well was the very first premium tequila to come onto the market to have a full ranging. So the year 1800, obviously not being the year that we released it, it was actually the year that we first saw aged tequila come onto the market. So the first brand to go out with a silver, a reposado, and añejo. And today, obviously, we'll be covering the añejo side of things. And when we talk about aged tequilas, I know that Pity kind of touched on a little bit about sort of we, as tequila drinkers, and I'm sure most of the brand ambassadors in this chat can probably agree, most of us probably lean towards drinking silver. But when it comes to consumers, I do find añejo is the best way to introduce them into the category. Sometimes when we talk about silver tequilas, they are really strong on those agave flavors and that terroir and all those terms that we've heard the other guys speak about. But when we talk about an aged tequila, you start leaning into flavor profiles that are really familiar for consumers. We're pulling from those rum categories and those whiskey categories. And people do know rum and whiskey a little bit better than tequila at this stage because tequila is still up and coming and it's new. So we are actually seeing here in Australia, our 1800 añejo is actually our #1 seller behind our coconut. Coconut's hard to beat. We'll get into that later. And just a little bit more info on the añejo category as well. A lot of people might not be aware of this, but at the moment there is a pretty big shortage of añejo tequila around the world. There's demand for it is growing. COVID did tequila a world of wonders, basically, because people started drinking a lot of premium tequila at home, which is really, really good. But people started, obviously, I think it's like this misconception amongst consumers that aged tequila means better tequila, which is not the case, as Pity did touch on earlier. But consumers still really love that idea of that more expensive, more premium product. So they started selling a lot of añejo. And for anyone who doesn't know as well, we're in the middle of not an agave shortage, but it is the most expensive it's ever been. So brands are a little bit hesitant to lay down aged tequilas in barrels because then obviously they've got to wait the time. An añejo by law has to be aged a minimum of 12 months. So if you lay down your tequila when it's the most expensive to produce, you then have to wait another year to pull it out of barrels. So we are seeing some shortage in the añejo market as well. So luckily for you guys, no shortage here today. Plenty of añejo to go around for everyone. We're really lucky at Jose Cuervo as well. We do have the largest holding of agave in the world, which means that we can offer a very consistent, good quality product as well. So no shortages coming out of our distillery.
That's fantastic. Now you touched on before about production that could be moving. Could we make tequila in Australia?
No. We are seeing some really interesting and fun little brands pop up on the market at the moment that are producing an agave spirit, which is great to see, and it'll be a really interesting space to watch. but you can't call it tequila, obviously. So it does, with that denomination of origin that I think Pity spoke about earlier, it obviously has to be made in Mexico. But the brands that are starting to experiment a little bit here in Australia, we can grow agave here in Australia really well. So I think in the future we might see some great products. I feel there's still probably a long way to go before we get a really consistent, good quality sort of spirit coming out, but it is something that we're working towards here, I would say.
That's fantastic.
Fabulous. Do you want to touch on, or could you touch on a little bit about the aging process? I know it's over 12 months, but even for an añejo tequila, this is quite dark.
Yes.
What makes it stand out on the back bar, which is, I know in Ballarat, that's why we sell a lot of it, because everyone points at it and says, what is that and why is it so dark?
So there's a couple of factors here, and one of them being the level of char that goes onto the barrel. So just like whiskey, when we talk about tequila, there are different char levels on your barrels. At our distillery, I think we touched, a couple of the other brands touched on barrels that they use. We actually don't use any ex-bourbon barrels, any ex like French casks and stuff. All the barrels that we have at our distillery are new. And we do char them on site, build them on site and char them on site. So we have different levels of char that we use to the barrels, and the 1800 añejo, we use the strongest level of char, which does give it, on the nose, you get that real kind of light tobacco smoke. There's no smoke, obviously, in the production of this tequila. It's not to say that you couldn't use it, but of this tequila, there's no smoke in the process. That really light smokiness comes from that barrel. The second component, full transparency, does come from an element of colouring. Whenever you see any aged spirits around the world, that you can walk into a Dan Murphy's and they're all the same colour side by side on the shelf. There is an element of colouring because they don't come out of the barrel the same colour every single time. So there is an element that goes into that for consistency purposes, where you don't get people thinking you've got a faulty or a wrong batch on the shelf. But a lot of it is coming from obviously that long time in the barrel. So when you look at silver, you're only aging up to 59 days at the absolute maximum. When we talk about añejo, it's anywhere from that 12 months to 3 years. So that long time in a barrel will give it a naturally darker color. And I think, as Joey has already touched on as well, because in Mexico, we've got that warmer climate, you do start to see that interaction with the barrel a lot quicker. So you start getting that influence and that colouring from the barrel. It will come through quite strong, even though it is only that 12 months. But there is also a touch of colouring. I will be completely transparent about that.
Oh, it's good to be honest. Look, it tastes great to me. It doesn't worry me at all. Now, I've noticed on these bottles, all these bottles have got a separate little sort of number on them. Can you tell us a little bit about the number and maybe even just briefly the laws of making tequila if we can't make it in Australia, like why? So
there's a couple of guys have already touched on a few of the laws. So the first one obviously being tequila has to be made using blue agave. So you cannot use any other agave species in its production. And that's where we start to differ from mezcal, which Alice will get into shortly. The second law with tequila around the world is that it has to be between 35% and 55% alcohol. So you can't go any higher and you can't go any lower than that. I think it was Pity that said they keep their brand at 37%. For the Australian market across our portfolio, we're 38% for most products. We are 40% for our new Joe Bell range. So the third law is that nom number on the bottle. So a nom number is essentially a distillery number. And if we were to go back, 10 years and look at tequila production, that number would have quite a lot of meaning behind it, because you'd be able to look up that number and go, this distillery has an autoclave, they have a diffuser, and you'd be able to work out the way that they're producing really easily. But now, basically what a nom number is, in its simplest terms, is where the tequila is bottled. Because there are distilleries out there that are producing, 50 to 100 different brands out of their one distillery. So you have no idea which brand they're using which production for. So the NOM number now basically is a number that states sort of where it's bottled, and that's probably about the only information that you'll get from from a NOM number these days, but it does legally have to be on the bottle as well. And the other law we've already touched on, obviously tequila has to be made in Mexico, in one of the 5 legal states. I won't butcher the pronunciations of them. I'm sure most of the other brand ambassadors can agree that my accent is way too Australian to be able to say them. But you do need to produce in one of the 5 legal states. So not only do you need to produce in one of those 5 states, the agave that you're actually using for production, it needs to grow in one of those states as well. So every single agave is numbered and registered with the CRT, who are the guys that govern tequila. And it has to grow in one of those 5 states as well. So you can't be grabbing blue agaves from up in the north and bringing them down for production.
Fantastic. So much knowledge. Domo, what do you think, mate? I'm a massive fan of drinking añejo neat. How else do you drink it?
We have a great barrel-aged cocktail on, which is sounds a little bit tacky, and it is a bit of a name that is like or to me, but it's salted caramel tequila old-fashioned. Very subtle on the salted caramel, a hint of Pedro Jimenez sherry, hint of sweet vermouth, but using añejo tequila as the base. A beautiful sipping nightcap of a cocktail, but sipping neat just before bed. That's what this one's for.
Absolutely. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of everything so far. And I'm even a massive fan of the next one, Damien. I was told that I like putting coconut too much on the menu.
I'm okay with that. That's fine.
I would have it on every single... there would be coconut Negronis if it was up to me. So
why haven't we done that?
I know, we should
Moving
try
on.
that.
So let's talk
Hey,
about...
a coconut Negroni with a little bit of sherry is delicious.
Oh, I might have to...
all right, let's move on to the next tequila, Hayley, which is the 1800 coconut.
Yep. So I'm hoping most of you guys that are listening are pretty familiar with this. It is our #1 selling product from the 1800 portfolio. And, you know, as much as I'm a tequila lover and I do probably drink more silver than anything, I almost hate to admit how much I use the 1800 coconut, and especially when I was working in bars. Because of tequila laws and because of how strictly tequila is governed, we do have to sort of talk about 1800 coconut in a slightly different way. It is not tequila. It is made using tequila. And that comes down to how much additive you're actually allowed in a bottle of silver tequila. We infuse this with coconut, which exceeds that limit. And I'm sure Cafe Patron fall into that same category where, you know, it's used, we use 100% agave tequila to make it, but we can't actually write on the bottle that it is 100% agave tequila. So we infuse this one with basically the white flesh and fleshy parts from a coconut, as well as coconut water. And then we actually filter it all out through chill filtration, and we drop it down to 35%. So it's still pretty high. It's still considered a spirit, and it does still have that tequila kind of flavor to it. You get that roasted agave and those beautiful notes of honey. But there's also obviously a really big punch of that fresh coconut and that citrus as well. This is like, honestly, when I started with the company, I was like, I probably won't use that very much. I now use it in, I reckon, every second cocktail I make. It's delicious in espresso martinis. It's really nice in a pina colada. It's beautiful just served really cold on ice with a squeeze of lime. But, you know, because it's got that 35% as well, it does still pack a little bit of a punch. So it's still got a nice aftertaste. However, if you don't like coconut, you probably won't love it. But it's just so versatile. I use it in stirred down cocktails as well. Like I said, a Negroni with a little touch of sherry is really nice. Old fashions, Manhattans, the list goes on and on.
Oh, I'm a big fan. So Joey, obviously you guys have the Patron XO Cafe. Pity, Tromba, will there be a Lily Pilly tequila liqueur one day?
That's a hard no. Hard no from Tequila Tromba.
Is it lime?
Oh, look, no, we're in our infancy of who we are, like as much as the people behind the brand and what we do, we're concentrating on trying to put Blanco, like Hayley touched on about, you know, the such a popularity of reposado and añejo, and like I was talking about earlier about that the article that in the US, which is a 16 million case market, last year the aged category grew by 41%. So when you got all that getting sucked out, and it's the cost of agave. Look, there depends on what you read as well. There's certainly vibes, and obviously the Hayley said the success of, you know, and the volume that 1800 Coconut does. Kudos. Not something that we would do. Once sort of COVID finishes, we'll be building our own distillery, but we'll be starting to play around with better, different, funkier barrels rather than jumping into flavors, I think.
And do for the rest of you guys, do you think that's where tequila will be heading? Playing around with different barrels, and we're finding it a lot with a lot of the whiskey companies now. The brands are finishing in different casks, and that will we head towards that? Joey, might ask you that question.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something on the forefront at Patron. We do have a barrel release range that we do. So we pick of those 5 barrels we talk about of our aging, the French, the Limousine, the Hungarian, the hybrid, the bourbon. We actually have a reposado and a añejo version of each of those 5 individual barrels. So that's a process we are actually going through at the moment. We're looking to bring them into Australia. They are quite large in the American market and the UK market, the barrel release elements. That's another area we're going to go into. So for us, yeah, absolutely. I think the next step is in tequila world is to show that versatility of product in cocktails, and then also identify and outline the beautiful flavors you can get from tequila under oak. Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Look, I like the fact that it gets people into the category. You know, so if they're drinking coconut or cafe at the start, hopefully they'll then move on to the other ones. So I'm just positive about anyone drinking tequila, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think when you touched on it before about agave growing in Australia, it can only be a positive for people to want to drink better spirits. It's a gateway, and it starts a conversation of what we're talking about now of appellation laws, and you know, 5 of the states in Mexico can't be called tequila in Australia. That everything's a positivity. And like I was saying before, like comparing apples to oranges of different brands, and even all these 3 tequila brands, they're all totally different. They've got totally different stories. They've got totally different heritage, but they all serve their purpose in the market. And it's up to the consumer and up to the trade to make up their own mind. And I think, and they do. You know, you can't have. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to have a cocktail on every list in the country. It's not gonna happen. You know, I'm sure Hayley and Joey would be the same thing. They want to dominate the world with, you know, being on every cocktail list. But you know, people want difference. And you know, like I say, the Australian agave thing is huge. It's a massive thing that, let's say, Top Shelf are doing. But all these other little ones like Mount Uncle and was it Black Snake? They're wonderful spirits, and it's their own thing. And like we're talking about, you know, growing agave, the whole thing's gone. It's not like wine, but if you look at agave spirits like wine, you know, that terroir comes in and it's finding your right area from agaves from different regions. And if Australia does it, awesome. You know, it's great. And that's what you can do with tequila. And I know that Alice will probably talk about it with mezcal, that when it comes from different regions and different species, you know, tequila, we're one species, but even it can taste so different across the brands, which makes it exciting. And there's no right or wrong. It's what you as bartenders want to put in your drinks that you stick in people's mouths and have a good time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. We were lucky enough.
I guess you also, just to add, sorry guys, to add there as well, and as Jason touched on it, like the Australian market is quite young. We look at the Australian wine industry; it's quite a young wine industry, and it's just booming as we speak now. We also look at like the gin market. We look at how that's developed over the last sort of 10, 15 years. Tequila is the next market to boom, and as a category, yes, we've been around Hayley 225 years, Patron like 40 something years. We've been around for a while, but we're only starting to see success just recently. So as a category, we are still quite young. So as I said before, get on board, get involved in it early, and let's ride this wave to absolute greatness.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Bring it on. We tried some agave spirit at Antler.
We did,
for our Christmas party, and it was, I'm not sure if it was the first distillate.
It was definitely the first.
Yeah, and very, very different.
Very earthy, very vegetal, but very exciting to see what's coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a perfect segue to head over to Alice Newport in Sydney and in lockdown, just like us.
Hello, guys.
Haven't seen you for ages. How's things going? Agave, awesome.
Yes, well, it's definitely an exciting brand, and it's definitely there's definitely a lot going on with Del Maguey. I can't say that it's boring. I don't think that anything that we produce is at all similar to any of its other sister SKUs. But yeah, I think mezcals are super exciting, an exciting category. Having been bartending over the last couple of years, I've definitely seen a rise in mezcal. I've been working at Tio's for the last 2 years, and I would say that 50% roughly of the mezcals, of the Tommies that I make, people go, oh, no, I don't want tequila in the Tommies, I want mezcal, which gives me hope for people drinking in Australia, for sure.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of the mezcal margarita or the smoky margarita.
I think my wife's termed Miscarriage, being a mezcal
I like that.
margarita hybrid, and it's pretty damn tasty.
Yeah, definitely. So for those of our viewers today that haven't tried mezcal, what's the difference between tequila and mezcal?
Well, first off, I'm excited that you all have some mezcal in front of you if you haven't done this, if you haven't tried this before. The guys talked you through about the kind of legalities of mezcal, of tequila. So tequila can be made in 5 regions in Mexico, and mezcal can be made in 9. You can use up to 49% of other sugars in tequila, and you can only have 20% of foreign sugars in mezcal. Look how sexy that bottle is. And obviously tequila can be made with one agave, which is Blue Weber agave. But when it comes to mezcal, you can use a very large amount of different types of agaves. So I think it's about 30 to 50 different types of agaves that you can use, but the legalities say that you can actually use just any agave that produces alcohol. So there's a lot more of different types of agaves that we can play with, which gives us the freedom to be able to create some of our beautiful wild range. Like, for example, the wild Chabala, which is probably one of my favorites. And then also the way that we cook the agaves is very different. So while they're harvested in the same way, the cooking process is different. So we take our the piñas, we cut them in half, and then we roast them in the ground in these kind of clay pits underneath wood and the leaves of the agaves. And that gives us this really beautiful, sweet, smoky, kind of stereotypical flavor profile that you find within mezcal. And that just comes from the cooking process. But there's a beautiful history to mezcal that I really love. And I guess I've been working with Del Maguey for a year, 18 months now. And there's, you can never stop learning about mezcal and, agave in general. But it's just a super exciting part of the agave category, really.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan. We've found over the last few years, it's just skyrocketing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Our manager, John, at 18th in Ballarat, pretty much is like me with coconut. He wants to put mezcal in every single cocktail as well. But
I'm about this. When they'll let me leave the state, I'm there.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the Vita. We're doing the Vita. Yeah, we're doing the Vita.
Yeah.
This is for us. We use this a lot in our cocktails because we find it.
Thank you. That's the correct answer. So I'll talk to you a little bit about Vita, and then I've just got a little bit, I guess, to talk about the history. I mean, mezcal has this incredible history. I won't bore you guys with too many details, but I will talk a little bit about, I think, the history of mezcal. But Vita is the flagship mezcal from Del Maguey. So Del Maguey Single Village Mezcal was founded in 1995. And we were founded by Ron Cooper, who was a renowned artist and mezcal visionary. And I think those are really cool kind of titles and accolades to have. I hope to one day be called a visionary of anything apart from, enjoying drinking booze. But something that Ron did was he really took kind of this artisanal mezcal that was being produced in these really small villages in a very handcrafted traditional way, and he brought that out to the world. So within the Del Maguey range, we have 19 mezcals. In the country, we currently have 16, and these are split into 4 separate ranges. So you've got the flagship and core range, which is this beautiful Del Maguey Vida, and then the crema. Then you've got the core single village series, and then you've got Vino de Mezcal, and then you move into the Especial series, which gets a bit weirder and wonderful with a Pechuga and an Iberico. But something I really love within the range is Vida. So we launched in 2010, and we launched to be able to tell the story of the Familia Cruz from San Luis del Rio in Oaxaca. And I'm so sorry for my Spanish here because it's not good at all. So Paciano Cruz Nolasco, I think that's how you say his name. If I ever met him, he probably wouldn't talk to me. But he's definitely one of the greatest mezcal producers the world will ever know. And he makes Vida. And he was one of the first producers that we ever worked with. And something that I really love about the way mezcal is produced is it is so ingrained into families. So you'll go and you'll go to one of these little mezcal distilleries off like the beaten road somewhere in the back end of Oaxaca. And there will be like the great grandfather who started making mezcal, and then his son, and then his son, and now his son, and now his son, and they'll all be there and they'll all be involved in the process. And I think that's beautiful that it is so ingrained into the families that produce this delicious juice. And that's something that I guess we really wanted to tell when we started Del Maguey. But yeah, sorry. So, you know, the man whose name I definitely can't pronounce, he makes Vida with his son. And what they really wanted to do is really tell the story of the place that they live, which is San Luis del Rio. So it's really deeply tied to their land and where the Red Ant River flows. And it really is it's a really vibrant mezcal. So it's made from Espadin Agave. And guys, everybody watching at home, I'm going to talk through a heap of stats right now. I will have a one-pager that covers off the different types of wood and how long and everything that is. That I'm going to say here because 1, I'm not going to pronounce the words correctly, and 2, there's a lot of stats here, and 3, this is your 4th drink, so you're probably not going to remember anything I said anyway. So I've got a one-pager that I can send through with all of this stuff. It's fine. So this is made from Espadin. I'm glad you like that, Pity. So Vida is made from Espadin Agave, which is the most commonly used agave in mezcal, and we grow our agaves to full maturity, which is about 7 to 8 years. And now we roast our agaves, as I said, in those kind of underground pits, using 8 different types of wood for between 3 to 8 days. And from there, we go into an 8 to 10 day fermentation. And that gives it this really beautiful, rich flavor. So, of course, it's twice distilled. But something that's really cool that I think is about mezcal is we don't distill to ABV. So we don't distill and then add water to bring down to ABV. We bottle at distillation strength. So mezcal is traditionally quite high in ABV, and Vida, I would say, is like the low alcoholic mezcal. It sits at a nice, clear, low 42%. But yeah, we distill at still strength rather than messing with the ABV. And something that I think is really, really, really cool is when the guys or when the team at each distillery, they're trying to work out what ABV they're at. They can tell by looking at it. They take some out, and the way that the bubbles within the liquid dissipate, and the size of them means that they can tell the ABV just from looking at it, which I think is incredible. I know many people with incredible palates and lots of knowledge that wouldn't be able to differentiate between SKUs, let alone tell something, tell the ABV just by looking at it. So as I said, Vida sits at 42% ABV. We distill very, very slowly, in that very similar way that Joey was saying. So very small in wood fire, riverside copper stills. And this really produces flavors that really make it super versatile and really approachable for using in cocktails, which is what we wanted. So it's got a really beautiful nose of like aromatics and honeys, and with this beautiful kind of roast agave background. And then I think it's got a really nice spicy palate, and with a little bit of kind of orangey citrus at the end. And one thing I really like about Vida is it sticks around. Like it's not, you don't just, sip it and then, the flavor's gone. Like it really stays on your palate, which I think is which makes it pretty perfect for making cocktails. But yeah, that's a little bit about my delicious Vida.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. What do you think, Domo?
I've always been a massive fan. Absolutely. Have always got a bottle of this at home. I love it. I love that sort of smoky, roasty aspect to it. And for me, that sort of, I'm not sure. For me, it's that sort of acidic sort of flavor that goes with that smokiness that I really enjoy.
Yeah, I'd sort of get blown away. I've been geeking out, looking a little bit on mezcal production online a fair bit lately, and just the time that it takes to roast and build that fire, and just even the differences that I'm finding between mezcals. It's a lot like drinking red wine. That hills on there that's facing the sun tastes totally different to another one there. It's amazing. I'm a massive fan.
And I mean, you also have the 3 different types of mezcal. So you've got industrial mezcal, artisanal mezcal, and then ancestral mezcal. So the majority of mezcal that we would consume, and especially all of the Del Maguey range, are those artisanal mezcals. So there are rules and regulations around those productions. But then even within that, you've got 6 categories, which again I'm not going to pronounce all of, because if I do, you'll all laugh at me, which I don't want. But there are so many different layers of mezcal. As I said, it's just so interesting. And I could sit here for hours and hours and go into the very poorly pronounced details. But I think there's a lot more to mezcal than people think or people know about at this point in time.
I want you to have a crack at pronouncing the names, though, Alice.
Okay, so I've got Blanco, I've got Madura.
We'll all try and do one each and then see how we go. Like you said.
Okay, but you are not allowed to take reposado or añejo.
Extra añejo.
No, that's not a category of mezcal. Thank you. So you've got avocado, which is not avocado, by the way. It's avocado, which is processed with ingredients like infusions such as plants or worms. Yeah. And then you've got distillado, which, is distilled with ingredients or fruits or, poultry. So you've got like the pechuga. I just think there's so many interesting things in mezcal. And, one of my favorites within the the Del Maguey range is the Del Maguey Tromba, which is a wild agave. So within that agave, within the process of that is it's a wild agave, so it's not cultivated. So we are limited to how much that we can take and much we can make. For the yield that you would get from one Espadin agave, you need 8 Tabala agaves to produce the same yield. And then on top of that, they take so much longer when it comes to fermentation and roasting to kind of get those flavors that you want. And they take so much longer to grow in the first instance. But the flavors that you get out of that are so intense and so delicate and so fruity all at the same time. A Tabala takes 12 to 18 years to grow, which, we're looking at 7 to 8 for a traditional Espadin. So even just working with these types of agaves, you're going to have so many more of those kind of rich and luscious flavors coming out distillation, which I think is fantastic. Like, it's exciting to be able to play with those types of things that go into your production.
I love it.
The best.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And what I normally say for the viewers that are beginners, don't be scared to reach for that bottle. A lot of times we'll reach for a peated Isla malt or something to add to a cocktail. You can do the same thing with a mezcal to add that smoke in it.
100%. And it won't be nearly as offensive to a palate that you're not as, like, if you're not used to those type of smoky whiskies, and you can go to something so over the top peated. Like, I don't think mezcal in cocktails is overpowering when it comes to your palate. Like, I think it is a more approachable flavor.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of the last word with mezcal. How are they drinking mezcal in Mexico? Is it just straight? Do they?
Yeah, so I mean, our branding and our kind of signature serve is sip, don't shoot. any of you have met me, you know that goes against everything I am. But having spent time in Mexico, that is it's. But you know, having spent time in Mexico, people they sit and they drink agave spirits. It's not the same culture here as it is here. But you know, for example, if you go to places like Cantina OK, which is, you know, one of my favorite bars in the entire world, if you order a mezcal off their back bar, they serve it to you with some fruit on the side so that you can enjoy the mezcal with the flavors that they're offering to you as an addition, which does really kind of promote that sitting and enjoying it. Like, that's a drink rather than something you're having while you decide what cocktail you're having. And I think that's a really, really great way of enjoying mezcal. I will often go in there and, you know, they'll say, do you want to drink? And I will just sit there and I'll just sip on mezcals rather than having margaritas or beers or whatever. Because I do really like the flavors. I think they're nice and complex. And I just think it's nice to be able to explore that. That being said, I think in this type of the culture that we live in, having shots of mezcal is something that I would always suggest. If you're going to have a shot of something, let's do mezcal. Like, I think more people should be exploring that and understanding that they can enjoy it. You know, it's not something to be scared of. It's not going to have a terrible worm in the bottom of it. It does not have hallucinogenic properties. It's just a really good agave spirit that we're lucky enough to be able to bring into the world.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much.
That's amazing.
Damien,
that was a really sloppy ending. Sorry.
we could talk for hours.
Yeah.
We've got about 15 minutes left. Do we have any questions that you would like to have a look at?
First of all, thank you to everyone who's been sending questions through in the chat. We've got quite a few. We're going to try to get through as many of them as possible. But if we can't, we'll definitely get back to you via email. So first question from Bradley is aimed at Joey. Will we be getting a Roca or any single barrel Patron here in Australia?
Yeah, great question. So for those who don't know, our Roca portfolio is just the Tohono wheel aspect of our distillation process. So there is Roca available at Bar Patron and at Maya up in Brisbane for you to sample. But our limited SKUs in Australia, unfortunately. But we will be bringing in some more of that bar release stuff in the future. So keep your eyes out.
Super excited.
Absolutely fantastic. Next question. Do you think, and this will go out to probably the majority of the brands, do you think mixto tequila will become more of a focus of brands going forward? I mean, to deal with availability, but the sector has loads of potential if it got more love from a top-notch neutral grain spirit.
I really hope not.
Okay, I'm probably the better one to answer this because we do have a mixto tequila in our portfolio. I can pretty confidently say here in Australia, no. Around the world, mixto is still the number one, but here in Australia, as of 2019, 100% agave actually overtook mixto sales here in Australia, and that is predicted to continue on. Don't get me wrong, like mixto has its role to play in the industry, and as Pity touched on earlier as well, it was created out of necessity. And although we're staring down the barrel at the moment of yet another agave shortage, and you know the price of agave at the moment is the highest it's ever been. And to put that into perspective, to fill a large oven in tequila production at the moment would cost about $40,000 US. So mixto tequila plays its role because when prices do go up to what they are at the moment, you know, people do sometimes look for that alternative method. But as a brand that does have a mixto and obviously a very large portfolio of 100% agave as well, our predictions for here in Australia are that 100% agave will continue heading upwards and will continue to overtake mixto.
That's great news. So unfortunately, Damien, there won't be a lily-pilly mixto on the market in the next few years.
I was looking at that strawberry gum mixto. Just a quick question from myself for some of the brands out there. Do you see tequila producing distilleries turning to mezcal in every now and then we've got an agave shortage, but also the price of agave at the moment? Sorry to jump in, everyone, but from our side, they're two totally different categories, two different ways of actually making it. That a question that always comes up is, Jace, how do you describe the difference between tequila and mezcal? I still forget who actually told me the difference. So as we've talked about, tequila goes through a steam process. So the agave is cooked in basically a big pressure cooker, and mezcal is big hole dug, fire, rocks, ice, and it's baked. So if you think of a potato, tequila is steaming a potato. So beautiful, short, sharp notes and get the purity of the potato. And mezcal is like baking a potato. So you get those deep, earthy, smoky notes. So it's the two totally different processes. And I think most distilleries are set up for it. I know that from our side, I've had chats with Marco and Rodrigo before, that the appellation laws and the rules around the CRT and the regulations of tequila are quite tight. As Hayley just touched on, the price of agave is at a generational high. We're talking like 38 pesos a kilo when Tromba started 11 years ago, it was at 7 or 8 pesos a kilo. So at the moment, we're putting $8 US of raw agave into every single bottle. So when you do your price build, it's really expensive to make tequila at the moment, and that's where the mixtos do come in. But if people are prepared to pay it, like I sort of jokingly said before about gin, that when we sit on the shelf at Dan Murphy's at $79.99, go to your local Dan Murphy's or independent bottle shops. That it is expensive, and when you're looking at excise tax, that nearly $28 of that $80 is excise tax. So it makes it tough for people to drink better booze, but I think people want to, and people want to enjoy it a lot better.
Damien, I think as well on that, you're saying like if distilleries would kind of look at doing both, was that sort of where the question was going, at doing mezcal and tequila? I went to the agricultural division in Mexico in 2019, and mezcal's facing some really serious problems at the moment in overharvesting. As many of us have already touched on, mezcal's growing, and it's growing pretty quickly. And it really can't withstand the amount of growth that it's under at the moment, because most of the agave actually does grow out in the wild, and you can't actually cultivate it in a field. So at Jose Cuervo, we actually are looking at moving some of our production and focusing a little bit of our attention towards mezcal and how we can actually cultivate espadin at a reasonable rate, so that we've got a steady product, which we've just seen with our launch of 400 Conejos here in Australia. But we have had that brand launched around the world for a while now. So some brands do both, but obviously your production needs to be separate unless you're producing in one of the states that overlaps the denomination of origin. But some brands do touch on both, definitely.
We do a couple more questions.
A couple more before we wrap up. I think we had a comment that said, not a question, that Del Maguey Tovala is next level, from Chris Hunter.
Yeah, it is. Whoever you said that, I like you.
And there's another one by Chris Hunter. Are there any bottles of San Pablo Amayal Lepec? Geez, I'm Spanish and I can't even pronounce it.
I'm so glad you took that question, because that was not going to end tempo.
Is that for me? Because I don't understand what you just said.
Are there any bottles of San Pablo Amayaltavec?
I'm going to say maybe. Let's go with maybe, but I don't think so.
I just want to hear George say that again.
Yeah, it's like, can you say that one more time?
Twice is enough.
That's a Spaniard saying. Can't even pronounce it.
So question for Alice: how does the different types of agave affect the flavor of mezcal?
Well, it affects it greatly, really. Well, first off, as I mentioned, the time.
And we've potentially just lost Alice. George, a quick drink made with mezcal.
Sorry, Alice, if you're there, we've just dropped out. We've lost you there. My favorite mezcal cocktail is a last word. What about you?
Oh, sorry, guys. I got bumped from my phone. Can you guys see or hear me? There we go.
There we go.
Sorry, my phone died. I do apologize. Do you want me to keep going with my answer, or is somebody else answering a question because they were actually here?
We were just talking about our favorite cocktails made with mezcal. So if you want to give us yours and then continue your answer, that would be great.
Perfect, thanks. So as I mentioned, I really like a mezcal Tommy's. But if I love it, I know we've talked about Paloma's heaps. I feel like this is going to be now the new drink. A mezcal Paloma is something that I love. But if I'm going to do something super simple, I really like a Mexican mule. So just ginger beer and lime. I find it super, super refreshing. Again, it's something that you can really that you can do en masse if and when you're allowed to see anybody else outside of your household. But something that we have on the menu at Tio's actually, which is super nice, is actually a mezcal sour, which we make with grapefruit oleo, which again is delicious. But I don't think you can go wrong with changing up mezcal to be included in cocktails. Like, it is so versatile. If you can change the gin out to put tequila or cognac in, like, why can't you change it to put in mezcal? Do you know what I mean?
I totally agree. And Damien, we have some winners.
We do indeed. Alrighty. So these 5 winners, if you're still watching, which we hope you are, contact Paramount via their social media. Our first winner is Joshua Hampshire from Victoria. Do you want me to read all these 5 out, or you want to take it in turns?
Chris Kilham from New South Wales.
Nadia from South Australia.
Peter Taines from Queensland.
And David Houston from Victoria.
Congratulations. Well done, I thought, on those.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. I don't even know what that is. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. I feel like we've just got the biggest wealth of knowledge in everything agave. It's like we're sitting in Mexico, like I wish we were. Thank you so much for your time. I guess the main thing is, for our guests watching, drink more good tequila and mezcal and agave spirits.
And I think the one thing that I took away from this is Cappy Grapefruit is going to be very popular in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it really is good. Trust me.
Palomas, baby, Palomas.
And we're dropping a Paloma video with a Cappy on the Let's Talk Drinks channel. Give it a check. I'm going to put my plug in on YouTube. Guys, you are all going to receive, for all the viewers, a text message later on. There's some really good cracking deals that are only available until midnight tonight. Get on that. Order it in. Get your boss to order in some for you if you're not the owner. And thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you at the next.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.